Hey, husband,
Yes, wife.
why did Cinderella get kicked off the softball team?
Why?
Because she ran away from the ball.
Wow!
Come on, that's a good one.
Is it though?
Totally is.
And on a scale of pain to horrific pain, I don't know. I mean,
Well, for those of you who don't listen to our podcast, is I start with a stupid joke every time, and I think that was definitely one of my better ones.
better is again. It's one of those terms, wife, where we have to define the context of better.
You know what?
And I think that helps. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining. And if you're listening or watching to this after the live stream, you can check us out down at the bottom. We wanted to start off with a couple of PSA things before we jump in. So wife, take it away.
Yes. So, we, along with the Bovas, have both couples have been blessed with a Liliana, a tiny human named Liliana. Both Mrs. Bova and I were pregnant with 2 Lilianas at nationals. We both did really well, so I think Lightseekers needs to make a card named Liliana.
Yeah,
let's be real.
Lightseekers, Play Fusion, if you're listening, I think that would be really sweet. But
because of the tiny human named Liliana, if you hear some noises in the background, especially those of you on the live stream, if we pause for a second, that's why.
Yep. And of course, if necessary, we may drop off if you hear a long pause, or if wife suddenly disappears. Nothing's wrong. Yeah. It's just some things take priority. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
But enough of the PSAs. Everybody's kind of heard that the last few recordings if you've watched our other reveal discussion shows. So to clarify the difference, we've been doing a series of recordings talking about the upcoming set Uprising for Lightseekers, in which a number of other people, whether it was Play Fusion or actual content creators such as ourselves, had the opportunity to reveal new cards, which is really exciting. And speaking of exciting, wife.
So exciting.
Speaking of exciting, this is really cool. So just to geek out for a second, shout out to Play Fusion. This is a really cool opportunity. Thank you for allowing us to do this.
Yes, this is super cool. We've loved this game since the beginning, and now we get to reveal some cards. So, husband, are you ready?
Oh, I'm as ready as we're going to be, wife, because I'm excited. I've never gotten to do this before in any game that I played, so this is really cool. This is really fun.
Yes.
It's a new experience.
We're at Tech Tuesday.
Yep, we are officially part of Tech Tuesday, so as you'd imagine, there's going to be a bunch of orange cards showing up on screen.
Yes. Now, I wanted to do Tech Tuesday because Zuna was my girl at Nationals.
Yep.
So,
Zuna carried a lot of people.
Yeah, well, it was awesome.
Yeah, Zuna has some strong shoulders and a strong back, putting all those people on her back and carrying them to a lot of victories. But Zuna's kind of going the way of the dodo, and that's just the way it is. So, as another early note, we're going to try to focus on both the competitive aspect for these cards as well as looking towards standard, because we are going to be getting that retirement, that rotation, that however you want to refer to it. Some of the original cards from Wave 1 Awakening are going to kind of slide off to the side for a little bit, ride the pine, pick an idiom of choice.
Yes. All right. Let's do it.
All right. So our first one up is Gyro Master. So
Gyro Master or Hero Master, because it's an excellent sandwich.
Stop. Yes, it is, but stop.
It had to be done.
Stop.
Anyway.
Okay. So we have a rare time buff here, wife.
Yes, we do.
So the card text here is when any of your buffs are about to be removed by another hero, draw cards equal to the number of buffs being removed. So first things first, wife, let's talk about the artwork a little bit, because we've done that in each of our previous shows, and you had said offline that you thought this artwork was really cool.
I do think this artwork is really cool. He's a really awesome lizard man. Like, I like all the detail on him. And
which is coming, that's a lot coming from wife, because she's not exactly a huge fan of reptiles.
I am terrified of dinosaurs. It's a recurring nightmare since I was 4 years old. It will never end. But this has blue, sparkly, shiny stuff, or at least I'm envisioning the foil when it's going to have blue, sparkly, shiny stuff, and I'm super stoked for that.
I think this is going to look really fantastic as a foil, that's for sure. I do appreciate the T-Rex as a species, that I think they all look really cool. And each iteration and artist's take on it is definitely a little bit, like, you look at this guy and then you look at Zuna, and yes, it's quite clearly they're supposed to be together, but it's a different take, the way it shapes up visually.
Yeah, and I think this one looks really awesome.
Yeah. So my man's in there with his front work coat on, and he's feeding or preventing your opponent from really disrupting what you're doing all that much. So the way we had discussed this offline was, I kind of feel like this is supposed to be a fixed Time Warden.
Yeah, and I think it is. It seems to be like Time Warden, just a step back, which we've discussed before. A lot of this set is everything a little calmer, and I think that'll make things a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's, when we say a fixed Time Warden, it's not meant in any way to be a slap or an insult or a slight or whatever. It's just, let's face it, Time Warden was pretty strong. Time Warden was a pretty good card. It's shown up in a few decks.
Strong, and I think Gyro Master will start to we'll take that, and it'll keep going.
Yep,
in its own way.
So one of the things to keep in mind is, so the scenario is probably going to be, you either run this out ahead of time or you run it out alongside another important buff, and then your crystal leeches, your shadow puppets, those sort of things are going, they have to remove this. It's not unlike Noxan Assassin, in that if your opponent chooses to ignore it, even once, it's now generating profit.
Yeah.
Whereas Noxan Assassin was pushing damage, and maybe they could dodge that by virtue of some kind of damage reduction effect, just a ton of healing, or whatever the case may be. This is drawing you cards and getting you closer to whatever your win condition is, or digging you closer to utility, or just, again, replacing cards that are lost. So if they try and shadow puppet this and something else, at worst, you've now replaced those cards.
Yeah, and it's, you have it out there, and since drawing cards isn't an automatic mechanic in this game, it's really nice to be like, oh, well, you take those away? Well, I get new stuff just back.
Well, and that's a good point, wife, that a lot of people who may be newer players or aren't in tune with the competitive scene or anything along those lines, but drawing cards can be tough sometimes.
Yeah.
It can actually be a challenge. So trying to squeeze it in and interweave when to draw, when not to, when to make sure you can go for the throat, when to hold back. This allows you to kind of play a little more aggressively, because it's just run it out there and then just start slamming whatever your other cards are. Because then if your opponent tries to mess with you, okay, well, I'm just going to refill, gas up again, and put my foot back on the pedal.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a nice way to keep it going, and that's especially good, I feel like, in Tech, because Tech has a lot of aggro, and it's really nice when you keep the gas going. Yep.
Now, let's just to not make it all sunshine and rainbows, you do have to call out the fact that it specifically needs to be activated by your opponent. Your opponent has to play into it. So anybody out there who maybe tuned in late or skipped ahead just to, they said, oh, there's the card, I'll stop or start listening there. It does have to be removed by another hero. So all those crazy bomber shenanigans that you may or may have been trying to concoct, not going to cut it here. Not going to happen.
Unfortunately, that's not a thing.
Yeah, so that is a negative for it. But other than that, as we started out with, it kind of gives me the vibe of a updated Time Warden.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the most succinct way to put it. Do you picture, wife, this is opinion time. Do you picture off the top of your head, because I know you're playing typically a lot of actual attack, as in the card type attack, focused decks. Does this draw you into wanting to try tech buffs?
I think it definitely does. I mean, the main reason why I've always stayed clear of buffs is because I'm terrible about remembering things. So attacks are easy because they're immediate, but I think I could definitely try to get something to work with him.
As someone who's played a lot of, well, buff-centric decks in general, this is something that I'm going to keep my eye on. I am of two minds about it. It's definitely very, very interesting, as we said, and it has, if your opponent misplays even the first time, as I said, you're already profiting. So there's definitely some upside here. And there are some threatening tech buffs, both from existing ones, and I'm expecting that we're going to get a lot going forward. So this is something that I want to keep in the back of my head every time that I'm building decks, that, oh, well, maybe I could squeeze in a few Gyro Masters here or there to then add some, I want to say prevention, but a layer of defense in front of those important buffs that are either non-rotating or even rotating ones that, you know, may take a while to go off.
Yeah, I think defense is definitely the right word for that.
And that's the other piece, is that and we've seen a lot of tech buffs that take time. They just, and not the element, no pun intended. Yeah. It's just literally they take forever to tick. We're thinking the Colossi Cannons of the world, those sort of things. They're 4-corner buffs or many corner buffs in general. And as a result, you need to run them out there and kind of cross your fingers and hope that it'll get there. Mm-hmm. This gives you some insurance that even if your opponent tags it late and you didn't invest a huge amount and lose all of your holdings.
Yeah.
So any other thoughts on Gyro Master White before we move on to our next one?
Nope, just that he's super badass looking, and I'm excited to see what we can concoct with him.
Absolutely. So let's send Gyro Master off for now, and we're going to bring on our new hero. And we do have a little appendage there hanging off on the side. We'll explain that momentarily. But we have Mecha Builder Rixar, who, again, we'll get to the artwork in a second, but I really do like the artwork. So
yeah,
Rixar is a 30 health mechanical superior hero. He can carry 1 additional point of items, and when you deal damage to yourself, you may equip an item from your hand. So you may have seen, if you're watching the live stream or if you're watching this later on YouTube, that there are a few cards rotating on the side. Just figured I'd pick some that, you know, happen to do damage to yourself. See if it fit on theme a little bit. So obviously it's not every card. We want to leave something to the imagination. But wife, does this guy excite you? Where do you want to start with him?
I think he definitely does. Like you said, there's a lot. I mean, not a lot. There's a decent amount of tech things that are going to ping you back.
They seem to, that kind of seems to be a theme. I've heard of it before.
You're working with hot metal and you're building things, and sometimes you get hurt when those things happen. Which has, you know, I've built things, I get hurt. Like, I just built an IKEA set. And
Wife, we're not going to go there with so that's a different story.
I'm just saying that it's totally believable that when you're working with all this stuff, you're going to get hurt. So, I am pretty excited because it seems like it would be pretty easy to get your extra item out.
Exactly.
As soon as you have it.
It is notable, and Chad actually called this out as well, as a point we were going to bring up, that previous to this, the only tech option for hero with 1 extra item was Lexi. Which you get double superiority, but here you get an additional line of text, which does something pretty interesting. In this particular case, the way we were talking about it offline, prior to getting online, was that it's essentially when you deal damage, if you have the item, gain an extra action. So you get to drop it right into play. You don't have to worry about, you know, okay, my turn is disrupted because now I need to manually play this item so that way I can actually get to the thing I want to do. It's very easy to just, as you were describing, wife, accidentally do damage to yourself.
Yeah.
Accidentally, air quotes.
Yeah. Like, oh, whoops. Well, I did a thing. I get to play a thing, and then I get to do another thing. It's a nice way to get more done.
And something to keep in mind, as we actually just got, and we'll be going over these in a different show, but we just got multi-order Monday, or cross-order Monday with Razor Greshu. There was actually a tech cross-order combo. It was Tech Dread that obviously, since you're going to be reaching for those other items, you're going to be getting access to those other elements and orders that, I mean, for me at least, that's where my mind is going first. Yes, it's nice and all that, oh, I get my free item, but the fact that I can get access to potentially 3 other orders or a solid 2-pointer item and then another order is what excites me about this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be really good with that.
So there are a lot of different options for this guy. I'm curious to where it shapes up. One of the things that we had on here was Umbron Salvager, only because I distinctly recall, and it's kind of like burned into my brain, of losing a game. You know, it was just like a random one-off game in the app where I ended up dropping a game to basically a Lexi deck that happened to play multiple Umbron Salvagers. It's like, well, I guess I'll just take 8 every time.
Right?
I'm just taking 8 from unaligned cards like it happens.
So sad.
I'm very curious, and this is something that's more of a hypothetical. Mm-hmm. I really want to see items that when they get played do a thing. The reason I say that is one of the limitations that I found with focusing on items is, well, eventually, you fill up on items, even with the additional point. And yes, you could cycle some of them or, replace them for various reasons. But I want ones that say when they come in, do a few damage, or when they come in, remove a buff, and then maybe don't have any other text. And then it's kind of, I'm playing this deck with the intent of every turn spending actions to play items.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see if that finally becomes a thing or not.
I'd be interested. Like, I would like to play that, but I would like to watch you play that.
Well,
that sounds more about right.
It's something that I've just always had in my mind. I'm wondering when. I can't imagine that idea hasn't crossed Play Fusion's mind as well. Like, of course they've thought of that. It's just a matter of where do they want to fit it in? Is that an appropriate mechanic? Maybe we'll see a whole bunch of Creeble items this time, since everything's Creeble. Just about.
I love the Creebles. I'm okay with it.
One other thing I wanted to call out, and we were talking about this offline, wife, was Tantosian Blacksmith versus Supply Carrier. So the obvious thing is, okay, well, in a world with Tantosian Blacksmith, why are you going to the lengths to get this ability? But I think Supply Carrier as a tutor, and for those of you not familiar with that term, it's a card that lets you search your deck for cards. It's a reference to another game, but that's a digression we won't get into. So you move up to 2 item cards from your deck to your hand. Oh, and you get 2 healing, but whatever.
Yeah.
It unfortunately is a soul card, so you have to already have gotten access to that. Mm-hmm. But it is a way that you can build your own blacksmith, so to speak, with your self-damaging cards. Yeah. So is there anything... Oh, go ahead, wife.
And it's a way to... If you've already damaged yourself, help yourself a little bit more.
Exactly. I think for the most part, we're going to see Rixar showing up because of the first line of text. Yeah. That you have additional items. I think, at least right now, and obviously we're waiting to see what the other cards show up as, because tomorrow they could reveal a bunch of stuff that completely throws this out the window. Who knows? Even though we're not necessarily going to get tech reveals tomorrow, it could be something cross-order, again, because of the item theme, that will lend itself to this. We'll have to wait and see. But I think it's mostly going to be because of the first line of text as opposed to the second one, where despite the supply carrier interaction or presumably some later or future tutor effects, it's still going to be difficult to say, well, why am I not just playing Blacksmith? Yeah. I think. And feel free to disagree with me, wife. I don't want to...
I mean, I think it's possible, but I think it's really going to depend on what we see coming in the near future.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about the artwork compared to the first one on this guy?
This one creeps me out a little bit more. This one goes back to me being scared of dinosaurs.
But it's a dinosaur in a giant robot.
Yeah, like, that's something I want to happen. That's exactly, like, if you have a terror of dinosaurs, that's exactly what you want in your life, is a dinosaur with extra technology that's going to mess your day up. Yeah, sure, that's what I want.
See, the first thing that came to mind for me was Ripley from Alien.
I have not seen those movies because I'm a chicken.
Well, because she gets in the cargo hauler, and it kind of looks like it's a mech suit that you fit into,
Okay.
and she just becomes a badass.
I'll let
Not that
chat
she
talk to
wasn't
you about
before,
that
but like
because that's terrifying. That's where I'm gonna go with that. That's
okay,
terrifying.
wife. I like the artwork on this guy. I don't think it's quite going to lend itself as much as the previous one to being a foil, but like the artwork as a whole looks really cool.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts, wife? I mean, we have blast fuel battery, we have dugout reactor. There, as you said, a plethora of ways within order to get the triggers, but we're kind of landing on you want the additional item, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be the biggest draw, like you said.
Right.
So,
and one of the key things to keep in mind is that Lexi also is getting retired. Yeah, chat's calling that out as well. I apologize, I missed that one earlier. So now you continue to have access to a hero that has the additional item line.
Yeah.
So I guess we can kind of close up shop on that one, wife, unless you got any other thoughts to add?
I think so.
Okay. So we're going to move on.
Let's go in for our final reveal.
So our final reveal is a 2-cost combo, explosive and time. It's a combo buff. It's matter manipulation, which also, again, this is probably going to look pretty cool as a foil.
It's going to look so awesome as a foil.
So
I'm so excited for this to be a foil.
So matter manipulation is when you deal damage to yourself, you may rotate one of your explosive buffs one step backward. So you're probably going to notice that a bunch of the cards hanging on the side there are similar to what we saw before. Obviously, you want self-damaging triggers.
Yes.
That being said, there are a couple new ones, including... Yeah, you're right, Chad. That artwork should probably be a playmat. I'm sure it will be in the app.
Yeah, I'm sure. Definitely in the app and hopefully in real life.
Yes. We'll have to wait and see, because I think they've done a pretty good job with choosing all of those sort of things. You know, choosing the appropriate stuff. They've done a pretty solid job. So I will readily admit I read this card backwards, ironically enough, the first time. And I got really excited because I thought it rotated it one step forward. And I'm like, wait, so I could just play Colossi Cannon and it goes off? Because that's awesome. But that's not what the card does. It actually rotates cards backwards. Which is still really cool because from the other angle, and I've mentioned it a number of times on the show before, that I played a lot of Sun Hunter. So restarting and walking buffs back is a lot of fun. And yes, shout out to chat because I don't know if you saw it on the rotation or not, but yeah, Scatterbot is definitely something that you got to keep in mind for this.
Yes, it is.
So tell us how excited you are for this one, wife. Again, is this something that's going to force you away from those attack-based tech decks?
I actually think it will, and that's a big moment for me. Like, this one definitely will. But like Shibes says, with Scatterbot, it will be fantastic. I'm really excited for the play Scatterbot, ping yourself, boom. It's just pings back and forth forever.
Yep.
Which is kind of fun.
I'm imagining that we're going to continue to get, obviously, a whole bunch of tech things that care about the self-damage effects. So now you have that repeated trigger every turn.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to go, okay, hit your opponent. Hit me, restart, hit your opponent. Hit me, restart, hit your opponent, etc. Over and over and over again. And it is a May, which is notable for two reasons. One, don't forget it if you want to use it.
Right, yeah.
Two...
That's going to be my downfall right
there. Well, once you play with it a few times, I think you'll get it. But it's also, if for some bizarre reason you don't want to walk stuff back, like you really do just want to let them go, you're not locked into it.
Yeah, like if you play something a little bit out of order or if something messes up your order and you need to get to corner 3 or corner 4, you can keep pinging yourself until you get to corner 3 or corner 4.
Right. So one other thing to call out, and we had said this offline, wife, was that it's just explosive buffs. It's not explosive action buffs.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
I think it's asking a lot to say, oh, well, I'm going to get this combo buff, then I'm going to get this other combo buff, and then I'm going to do this other thing to keep resetting. Like, that might be pushing into the magical Christmas land territory.
I mean, every once in a while, magical Christmas land territory does work out.
And look, it's going to be hilarious. Well, for one person. I take that back. It'll be hilarious for a lot of people. Just one person in particular, probably your opponent, is not going to be so happy about it.
Yeah, they're not going to be, like, it's not going to be a feels good moment when it's you playing against it, but when it's you playing it, it's probably going to feel pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely... There's a few that I could think of off the top of my head, as well as including some of the ones that have recently been revealed. Yeah. No, it's not a cowboy hat. Sorry,
no, he's weird, and it's a predator hat.
It's not a hat, wife. It's a mask. Like, it goes over your face. Who wears a hat on their face?
I don't know. You're weird. It could happen.
I mean, I guess if you're sleeping, you do one of these.
Your face is like 3/5 beard.
Shout out to all those scrub fans out there. Anyway, Dr. Beardface. So before we digress any further and go into more nonsense, one thing that I actually did want to call out was a other recent reveal, Clock Smasher Crud. So it's a hero that the ability is you take a damage. That's really the only part of the text that matters for the most part. Like, it does do other stuff, don't get me wrong. So Clock Smasher, and he's on the rotation there in case you missed it, he is a time superior hero that his ability is take 1 damage. You may rotate one of your combo buffs 1 step forward. Well, let's ignore the second half for now, because again, Magical Christmas Land of hitting like multiple combos, specifically this one, and then something else you want to rotate, and your opponent ignores it, and you get to start your turn, all those things. The reason I bring it up is it allows you to trigger this ability without having to rely on another card. So you don't have to have the Nitro Hammers. You don't have to have the Leaking Generators. You don't have to have your Blast Field Battery. Now, you'll probably be running those anyway, don't get me wrong. But you can then look towards other buffs that maybe aren't Scatterbot level, where they're just going to do it on their own. Again, you're going to be playing those anyway, but it does expand the potential options that you have access to.
Yeah, and, it lends itself. It's just a little bit of a boost to make it work, and a lot of times hero abilities need that extra little boost, or abilities in general need that extra little boost, so that'll be nice. Well,
boost of consistency, at least for me.
Yeah, there we go.
That's the thing. Is like, it's not necessarily buffing the power level. I mean, I guess it is, because, you're activating it and you're ensuring that you get activations. But the consistency I find important. Nitro Hammer, because it's an item, is odds are pretty safe. There's exceptionally limited ways for your opponent to interact with your items. However, if you're relying on a buff or having to draw specific cards, this makes sure that whenever you have mana manipulation, you have a way to activate it.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe isn't necessarily the way a deck that contains it goes. This may live in an entirely different build, but I think it's something to keep in mind just by virtue of it being, well, there's a self-damage trigger.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts on matter manipulation? This thing is getting harder and harder to say.
Yeah, it's one of those. No, I'm just super excited to play with this one. The more we've talked about it as we've gotten it today, the more decks I'm coming up with in my head that I want to play it with. So, I'm getting pretty excited. I'm excited to see it in the app. Like, in the, especially if
I'm excited to get all of these in the app.
In the app, I think super awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. All 3 of these cards, I think, may fall into the category of really interesting, as in they're definitely problems that need to be solved. And I don't mean that as in a threat you need an answer. I mean that is in, okay,
it's a puzzle.
These have weird interactions. How do I solve the puzzle? It's more of a Rubik's Cube, I guess, for what the home for these are going to be.
and I'm excited to solve. I probably won't solve the puzzle. I'll steal other people. No, I'll try to solve the puzzle.
Well, we're gonna try, wife, but
I'm gonna make a solid effort. Except I am sleep deprived, so we'll see how good that solid effort goes.
Yeah, we definitely will. By no means claim that we are the best deck builders in this game. There are certainly many, many people out there that are much far superior to us.
Yes.
And we'll definitely look to them for guidance, because I can see the potential in a lot of these cards. And I'm excited to either sleeve them up, either, I guess, digitally, if that counts as sleeving them up, or, or actually sleeving them up physically, because there are a lot of things that each of these touch on that are like my own personal interests for the game. So again, I played a lot of Sun Hunter. I plan to in the future. I love the ability to walk buffs back. I feel like that is one of the really cool mechanics for this game in general, just rotating buffs and then interacting with the rotations. As opposed to, not to say that other facets of the game are not interesting, but to me, that's really what draws my attention.
Yeah, definitely.
So that is matter manipulation, and that is actually all three of our reveals. So we started out with Gyro Master, who, again, wife, correct me if you feel differently since we finished, we're thinking replacement Time Warden, hypothetically.
Yes.
Then we moved on to Mecha Builder Rixar, who is, well, a replacement Lexi, I guess, with pseudo blacksmith attached, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, it's a Lexi blacksmith combo.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a stretch to go to the length of blacksmith, but extra items. There's definitely a lot of things that interact there. I'm looking forward to hopefully building an item deck at some stage.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we finished up with what we were just talking about, which is matter manipulation, and I'm pretty excited about it because I just love rotating stuff backwards. It's fun.
Yeah. I mean, infinite rotation. Sure.
Well, I mean, it's only infinite until your opponent's dead, wife.
It's such a pleasant way to think about it.
And on that note,
you're just a ray of sunshine.
It is what it is, wife. What
and on that note,
so I guess I realized this was kind of short. We will definitely get these up on Facebook and everywhere later for everybody, so you can pull it down. We'll have this recording up on YouTube. Any other final thoughts before we close up shop, wife?
No, just excited. Everybody join us if you are interested in more reveal discussions. We will be doing that for the remainder of the reveals, most likely.
Yep.
And we're excited to get playing, and hopefully we'll see some of you in app or in real life, for those of you who we see in real life.
Absolutely. So I guess that'll do it for us. I'm husband.
I'm wife.
And please tune in next time for more Random's Thoughts.